Hey, what's bothering you?
Well, this week's been pretty hectic. I'm just trying to get everything ready for the patch. Well, and I don't even have an opener for this week, let alone a good one.
There isn't even that much to do. Oh, are you thinking of more stuff to make up and get clicks?
No, actually, I'm just trying to clean up my inventory in game.
He has no discipline. His hair looks awful. He plays a horde character, but he's cleaning his bags. You're actually serious.
Yeah.
Then I'll help. I will produce your opening thing if people are still here.
Are they still there?
Yeah.
Okay, then knock yourself out, man.
Ahem. Hello, I'm Bob. I have a joke to tell you. What's the difference between an oral thermometer and an anal thermometer? The taste.
What the kind of opening is that? Hi, I'm Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, the family-friendly broadcast where we just talk about the world of Warcraft, and yeah. And there is in fact a patch coming next week that is so important I am cleaning up my bags. For real, I don't do this very often. I consider this to be very serious stuff. And the people will tell you, people that watch me on stream, they'll back me up in the comments, right? Please vindicate me. This week has been a very busy week of last minute news about patch 8.2, including previews, reviews, clarifications, and don't forget the etceteras. I share my thoughts and feelings based on what I think was like 100 hours of playtime on the PTR. I think it was worth it, so check out the review that I have on patch 8.2 and I'll link below. But at the delicious gooey center of it all is the release date of patch 8.2. It's coming out next week. June 25th, 2019 is the day when the release of Rise of Ashara is upon us,
aka the Big WoW Classic commercial break.
But first, let's gently touch on some other WoW news, but not without referring to our beautiful, wonderful sponsors. Especially a couple of folks that had just showed up the other week. I'm going to try to feature them as they come in. Lucy Corney and Steamroller Man, thank you for your generous contributions. I love you. You guys are awesome. This week, there was a big old stress test for World of Warcraft Classic, and active subscribers, regardless of whether or not you got BFA, were all invited to the test. Every single one in the Americas region. Many of our counterparts throughout the world have been very understanding. After all, it's just a few days of testing under whatever the heck conditions that Blizzard set before us, like level restrictions or this whole blind test. Who knows what they were putting us through.
How dare they use us, the players, to test the game, and we're just trying to play. Oh, right, it's not out yet.
Which brings us to our what of the week, where I highlight some ridiculous comments somewhere out there in the World of Warcraft space. Trust me when I say that there was a lot to choose from in this case, but I decided to settle for some low-hanging fruit, as in, I know these people, so sorry. There were quite a few loud voices out there expressing their envy and dissatisfaction, like Mr. GM, who, with a little bit of grief, asks, what about EU? This was followed by another fellow by the name of Valrisha who says, EU always gets cucked by Blizzard. Always has been. We get ignored on the forums, barely any blue posts, goes on and on. They hate EU. What? There had already been a lot of responses from fellow fans encouraging calm, and I'm gonna give my take on this. This is a test of World of Warcraft Classic, a game that many have been looking forward to. Now, when testing the video game, it's important to create conditions that get really close to emulating the real world. So that means testing on different levels of hardware or software. This also means testing from a variety of locations as well as internet connections to try to simulate these real world conditions. These are just pretend numbers, but if on a given PTR server, one half of everyone was from the Americas and the other half was on Europe, and this sets aside the point that on the current PTR, there are servers that are supposed to be designated for the different regions when they don't seem to be actually. But with this sort of split, you might be thinking, hey, with all these different types of people coming in to test, this is definitely stressing Blizzard servers, so yeah, let's just keep doing the stressing, yeah! Unfortunately though, that's not what I would consider as a proper test. Out here in the real world, the Americas and Europe, they're separated. by region. There are exceptions that are peppered about, but there's only really a handful of players who purposefully play on a region that is not their own. But now you might be wondering, hey, what about the usual PTRs and betas like the ones that we test for BFA? Like, wouldn't any testing on that then be considered an improper test too, Soul? God. I am just a former tester and not affiliated directly with Blizzard, so take what little value you can out of what I have to say when I say yes and no to the whole proper testing question. It really just depends on what it is that Blizzard is testing. If we're checking things like boss mechanics, or if things are colored correctly, or if you're falling off the world, or if an ability is balanced, the connection type might matter a little bit, but it's not critical to what Blizzard is looking for. We're obviously seeing that the technology behind Classic WoW, which is this whole layering business, is brand new stuff, and Blizzard wants to make it as perfect as possible before launch, especially now that they have a release date hanging over their heads thanks to you folks who have been pounding at the doors ever since the initial announcement of Classic WoW. When, here we have it, and this is pretty much what you get, you impatient mothers.
Shut your mouth.
Sorry. The point is, no, Blizzard does not hate the EU. In fact, the stress test after this is going to go back to the whole mixed region testing just the way we had it before. Believe it or not, Blizzard actually loves you, at least your money. But in order to get that money, they need to try and deliver a good product. And in order to deliver a good product, then maybe sometimes they gotta give us weird-ass testing conditions. Oh well. Moving on, 100 Horde guilds have downed Unat in the Crucible of Storms raid, closing out their side of the Hall of Fame for Season 2. These guilds rank among the best of the best, including Scary Maze, Big Dumb Guild, Unwealthy Homeless Men,
Wiping as Intended, Poetry Club,
Hard in the Paint. Any hungry?
See you Thursday,
This is fine. Whatever, we're awesome.
and of course, Strawberry Puppy Kisses. So how are the Alliance doing? As of this date, we're looking at
Oh god, the horror.
Alright, Bob, now calm down. Honestly, it's unfortunate that the Alliance just didn't have Fortune on their side this time around. This is pretty bad though. You can say Blizzard should get together and have a group therapy session on how to fix this potato of a faction imbalance. Come up with a fair and ethical solution. Why they're afraid to do something drastic, it's like they're scared of the dark. But on the other hand, I think they're on the right track with what they're doing. There's no sense throwing the whole Camel Club into the loony bin, just because Swing of the Phoenix, Vindicatum, dang it! Okay, I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end it doesn't even matter. Let's talk 8.2. There are a few things I already covered throughout this week, but I wanted to leave a few additional thoughts and questions to consider, so folks feel free to chime in if you want. Twink boosting is being shot down in 8.2. The service was a product of the way secondary stats scale when going into a new expansion. The service was a product of many things, including demand, of course, along with the way secondary stats scale when going into a new expansion, level scaling itself, and the multitude of reasons people told themselves and others as to why they wanted to skip the leveling process. Speaking for myself, I find leveling to be kind of meh because I tend to do everything on my main before I get to the spattering of alts that I have. And because of achievements like Pathfinder, I'm gonna have done everything on my main, so redoing the experience again just doesn't feel quite as compelling. Compare this to previous expansions with multiple starting and late stage zones, and this sort of highlights the issue. If Northrend had level scaling, I'd bet like $3.28 that I'd still have a good time. Because in one playthrough, I might start in Borean Tundra, and by the time I hit max level, maybe an Ice Crown, I probably wouldn't have completed all the quests in every zone. Maybe next time I'll start in Howling Forward and finish in Storm Peaks instead. It's fair to say that between multiple alts, with rest experience and heirloom gear, along with the alternate leveling paths like islands, battlegrounds, and dungeons, you can still kind of spice things up. But typically, on the first playthrough of the new expansion in the new continent that you're on, you're probably going to hit every zone, and that knocks out a lot of what could be a compelling and varied experience. I think in the end, I would just love to have less overlap between multiple leveling experiences or multiple playthroughs, but I would like to hear some of your thoughts too. There were a few last minute changes on the PTR over the past week or so. One change disrupts the idea that we had at banking as much artifact power as we could by farming tons of world quests.
Binging on world quests. Hey, Soul.
Yeah?
Do you need help?
No, I can farm this stuff on my own. Just fine, yeah.
That's not what I meant.
So it turns out Blizzard noticed this and made a slight nerf to the process. The bonus that you get from turning in these Paragon rewards has been moved from the chest to actually turning in the quest. That means whatever Paragon chest you have in your inventory right now is not going to give you extra artifact power after the patch launches. To sum that up, the most artifact power you can bank has gone down from 45,000 AP to 30,000. It sort of sucks that Blizzard negated some of the efforts that we put in, but hopefully if you went down this venture, then yeah, hopefully you were mentally prepared for something like this, because this is something that Blizzard does normally. On the plus side though, Lorthamar got his voice back.
Let Azara's lackeys break upon our ranks. We will not yield.
Azara wasn't the only one manipulating us. I should have seen it sooner. A lesson that Jaina Proudmoore and I needed to learn. Your counsel is wise, Thalisra. Our focus must be on ending Azara's reign.
Champions, claim victory!
Oh yeah, now we're ready for the patch. A trailer was released detailing some of the features of the 8.2 experience, as well as an inferior survival guide.
Yeah, you tell them.
In place of the usual Q&A was Ian Hazzikostas by his lonesome, using a prompter slightly off camera and making him take his eyes away from the screen like, come on Ian, that's totally unimmersive, like keep your eyes on your audience. Sheesh. In this video he introduced something unusual to some of WoW's harshest critics, hope. He talked up some of the dev team's philosophies and insights when it comes to class design, and admitted that when it came to the so-called paradigm of class identity, they went too far in the direction of spec identity, which is the core motivation for abilities being pruned or moved to spec-specific abilities or PvP talents. For example, Holy Prism used to be available for paladins of all specs, and what I did with it as a tank, let's say the healer happened to get some heal aggro from some stray mobs. Instead of running over there and trying to throw it on the Consecrate or throwing my shield, I can just use Holy Prism on the friendly healer, and what would happen is that the healer would get healed, but a couple of beams of light would strike targets nearby, and those targets would come towards me because I would get a lot of threat from that, and that was pretty cool. It's something that I do miss, and it'd be really cool to have that back. As for what's going to happen specifically, well, Ian did talk about Alter Time going back to mages, but that was more like an example and not a promise. But I predict that if nothing else, classes are probably going to be turned upside down the next expansion. And features like the talent row system, and here's a trivia fact, the talent row system is almost as old as the talent trees that they replaced. For all we know, that might get thrown out too, in favor of something else. Speaking for me, I would simply prefer to have abilities be a bit more baseline, as they had talked about, and not be spec specific. But whatever comes in the near future, when they announce this at BlizzCon, I would love to have some sort of system that doesn't necessarily give me a lot of extra buttons or abilities, but makes it so that the baseline abilities that I do have celebrate the role that I play. But what do you want? I want to hear what ideas you have, and I don't want you to hold back. I straight up want to hear your wish list that you would want to see for your favorite class or spec. Doesn't matter how ridiculous the idea is, and I'll start off. I think it would be cool if my tank paladin could have a shield on both hands. Yeah.
That's fucking stupid.
Well, I'm leading off with this, that's kind of the point. Anyway, share your ideas, I want to hear them. So to sum up this week, for those who do not read up on Wowhead, who do not look up what the latest talking head is saying day after day, tweet after tweet, it's been a media shower of what to look forward to beginning next week. For the rest of us, though, who look at WoW under the scrutiny of a daily news cycle, you can think of this as a depressurization. After nearly 2 months of 8.2 coverage that started with Jeremy Fiesel doing his whole 8.2 introduction back in like April. This ride's almost over, but the real one is about to begin. So I hope you enjoyed the journey with me, because in a few short weeks we're going to do this all over again when the 8.2.5 PTR comes out. Or WoW Classic, yeah, right. As for what I'm going to be doing in the meantime, I'm going to try and cover some spec-specific, i.e. Paladin-related stuff, just ahead of the Eternal Palace raid launching in just a couple weeks. So stay tuned for that and some original content. I'm going to try to have another episode of Prisoner of Warcraft sometime in the near future, maybe a top 10 something or other. But whatever comes, I hope you join me for some future adventures here in the World of Warcraft space. So don't forget to subscribe and support the channel the best way that you feel like, including just saying hi over here or on stream. I know that sometimes my social interactions are awkward, but do it anyway. But thank you so much for coming. I appreciate having you, and we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.